Thank you very much for being here. I was asked to come here to talk about how to present population change and my experience on how to succeed to make it understood. Because I'm not a specialist in this area. Almost all of you know more about this area than I do. But I have been, to my surprise, very successful on YouTube and in presentation of the material. So bear with me now when I will talk about things which may be known to you, but you should see the way I presented it and see if that is a good idea. That's why I hope that many will see it. And I called my presentation Communicating Population Change Surprisingly Difficult. It seems as population should be simple, but it seems not to be, because it involves a lot of emotion and a lot of political interest, and mathematically it's not that straightforward to us. So, what is it which is the problem? This statement is very common in the richest countries, especially in environmental activists. In fact, it's the most common comment and protest that Bill and Melinda Gates receives. If you save the life of the poor children, you destroy the planet. It's a quite vulgar statement. It's also the most common email we get in our foundation from secondary school kids in North America and West Europe. Not from the rest of the world, but from them. And this is important because this is those who should stand up for the commitment made in London. But I also hear this in African countries. And I worked myself in Africa many years. I have 20 years of research collaboration with African institutions. And this is, at the rate people are dying today in our country, population is not an issue. What is common between these two is that people perceive mortality as being a stronger determinant for population change than fertility. And especially, most people are very difficult in understanding the relation between a certain mortality and a certain fertility rate, what it will mean for the population. Now, it's actually not so different. In the past, if it was 200, 300 years ago in the world, or even 1,000 years back, the two parents would get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I would actually advise my dear colleagues to come down and sit in this nice sofa, because you will see how it is. Please do that. Please do that. Because otherwise you will not see how I pointed this. One would think that when parents on average got 6 children, that the population would grow very fast. But it didn't. Because 1, 2, 3, 4 children would die before growing up and becoming parents themselves. This is the average in the world over the last 1,000 years. And this resulted in a stable population size, and you could call it the old balance. Balance in the way that 2 parents were replaced by 2 in the next generation. Thereafter, after the year 1800, we started to grow with the population in the world. It started to grow, but it was not because parents got more children. Still about 6 on average. But what happened was that less were dying. And it's that reduction in death which increased the world population to 7 billion. Now, many still today say that we have logarithmic growth or exponential growth of world population. That is wrong. We haven't had logarithmic or exponential growth for the last 50 years. It's completely linear. And just that in itself has a message. If you have a linear growth on your bank account, that means that the interest rate is falling. And that means that the growth rate is falling. But still this is cited as the Paul Ehrlich curve going up like this, you know, which is not the fact. In fact, we are rather close to a new balance, where parents on average get 2 children and very few die. In fact, the death rate in children under 5 is 6% today. It's very much lower. And UN population division projection is that there should be 10 billion in the world until the end of this, or in the second part of this century. I will show you an interactive graph of this, which can make much more sense. Look here. Each bubble here is a country. The size of the bubble is the size of the population. Obviously, this is China, this is India. I started 1963, about 50 years ago. And the color shows the continent, East Asia and Pacific, light blue is South Asia, dark blue is Africa, green Middle East is the brown or orange, there is Europe, and yellow is Americas. You can see that there were two types of countries in the world, because here I have population size. 2 to 4 children per woman, 6 to 8 children per woman. Here I have child mortality, 100 per thousand, 200 per thousand, 300 per thousand. That means 1/3 of the children dying here before reaching school age. And it's very typical. The world had developing countries and developing countries and developed countries, or West and the rest. Only Cuba and Singapore were in between. Almost no countries in between. What has happened? I will start the world now, and you will be able to see what happens. Ready, steady, go. As the year passes by, the mortality rate is falling, and family planning starts in China, and they move very fast. Here comes Latin America, they also move very fast. And look at Bangladesh. Bangladesh is catching up with India, and they are overtaking India, and they are going into this group, and here Pakistan is coming in. Most of the African countries are speeding up, and they are today. A completely new world. Now, I have found that when I change my voice to sound like a sportcaster, then people relax. They say, this is not statistics and demography any longer, this is fun. And you take some countries like it, but it's quite amazing. And most people are unaware. They may know some few countries, but going back to 1971, the independence of Bangladesh here. And we mark Bangladesh up there, and we look the rest of the world where it is. Sorry. We go to number, now there, 72. I look the world, and look what Bangladesh has done. Wow. Bangladesh today is where the Western world was at its independence. 1972, when I was studying as a student in St. John's Medical College in Bangalore. It's in my adult lifetime this has happened. And very few are aware that Bangladesh today is like the Western world was then. How much has the Western world changed? Well, if I click them there, they haven't changed. They haven't changed too much. What we see here, very clearly, is that most countries of the world are down here. The average number of children per woman is 2.5, 2.4 today. It's an absolutely amazing success. And my argument for providing means for family planning, it has worked in 80% of the world. Let's continue to provide it for everyone, just as it was done in Bangladesh. And I like the comment from the representative of Nigeria who said, well, that's a good advice to have people from Bangladesh to come and say, because they have experienced this very recently. The earlier transition in Europe is less relevant. Because if I go backward, here we are, 1800, you can see European countries coming down there. They are jumping down like this. That was without family planning. That was in another situation with quite a lot of repression on single women. That's not relevant for the world. It's much more relevant, this success to have it. So advice, don't listen to European and North Americans. Listen to those who have done it just a decade or 2 or 3 ahead of. That is much, much wiser. And it's interesting to see that these have done quite fast. You will see that Africa is doing worse. Look, Africa is here. But if I look at 2 in the front here, Ethiopia and Ghana, for different reasons they are in the front. And I can go back here, and there is Ethiopia. Can you see Ethiopia? I will now split Ethiopia into Addis Ababa and the Somali region. Isn't it amazing? Within one, it's a very big country, Ethiopia. But still, from less than 2 children per woman, Addis Ababa is an amazing drop in fertility rate. And here, like Afghanistan or Somalia, but of course it's a civil war. It's a part of the country which has been struck by civil war. If I split Ghana into income quintiles, the best of with most education are also with Asia in Ghana. Whereas northern Ghana, rural, will also be up here. It's a very big challenge in Africa, and that's explained when we say that the demographic gift help Asia to have a fast economic growth. And then people say, but Africa is not having fast economic growth without having low fertility. This is wrong. The parts of Africa that have fast economic growth, they also have small families today. You're already benefiting from that. In this northern part of Ghana, the economic growth isn't that impressive. So it's really the same thing happening, though in an African reality, in this slightly different context. Now, do people know about this? I was able last year to make a survey with the entire Swedish population. The government asked me to put in some questions of knowledge. They do a survey every year to see if the Swedish voters want to give development aid. Politicians are very nervous. In the end, it's no idea to discuss with the politicians in Europe or the administrators. It's the voters who decide. And so they asked the voters, do you want to give aid? And I could put in knowledge question. I asked them, what is the number of births per woman in Bangladesh? 5.5, 4.5, 3.5, or 2.5? Quite easy question. People in Sweden know what Bangladesh is. These are the answers of the Swedes. This is the answer of the Swedes. And I needed a control group. I was thinking about taking Norway as a control group. But then I decided to go to the zoo instead, and I took the chimpanzees. And you know, the chimpanzees, they didn't understand the question, so they would answer the same on each alternative, isn't it? If you just by random pick an answer, you know, it would be like the chimpanzees. So you see, but the Swedes really had an idea. The Swedes were not ignorant. They had a very clear idea of how things were in Bangladesh. Problem is that the chimpanzees won. Isn't it tragic? And I've had success as a lecturer. I haven't had an impact. Only 5% of Swedes know this. I will spend my life to lift Swedish knowledge up to the chimpanzee level. That will take me another decade. We have a severe ignorance in West Europe and North America about the progress in the rest of the world. They use the term developing world, and then they take the worst problem and say that exists all over. And they're also arrogant. And the toxic combination of arrogance and ignorance is one of your worst problems. They don't want to see any good results, they just look at the problem they see here or there. And this is very deep. I did it on question after question. This is what the Swedes thought. That was reality in 1990. They are 20 years behind the time. 20 years behind the time. And this is very tragic because they won't know this success. And that means also that sort of countries who are there today in Africa, it's just 20 years. And you can be in this situation. It's not that long difference. Now, how many children are there in the world? I used to ask about this. When I was born in 1948, we were less than 1 billion children. I count children 0 to 50. 0 to 50. Then the number of children increased up to the year 2000. At the turn of the millennium, we were 2 billion. There were 2 billion children in the world. I was no longer a child by that, no? And now, what is it now? Well, has UN Population Division made a projection of 4 billion by the end of the century, 3 billion or 2 billion? Almost all I lecture to guess that it's 4 or 3. Very few know that this is the fact. The number of children in the world has stopped growing. That means that the number of new children who come in, 135 million born every year, 7 million dies, 128 million would need to start school, and it's 128 million who also make it to their 15th birthday. So the number of children has stopped growing. And that's why population growth has to stop, isn't it, with children? Because we don't have immigration from space to the world. It is just the children which are added. Now, this reality then, you can really see this clearly if we look at for instance, this one. I would like to show. I've changed this one slightly so that we have here, I put no number of children here, 2 children, 4 children, 6 children, and now I put money down. Because the idea in the past was, if you just have economic growth, you will have a decrease in fertility rate. You don't have to bother about family planning and these embarrassing things that they upset religious leaders. You just get this. Look here, 1962, Japan, Europe, America, they had $10,000 and they had 2 children per woman. The rest of the world were all up there, 6, and they had less money. So if you get more money, you will fall it down. But look what the countries did. The countries did something completely different. Let me mark, for example, that was Saudi Arabia. I wanted to find Qatar. We know Qatar now as the richest country in the world, and I'll mark Bangladesh. They both have this. And many people say, oh, Muslims can't have family planning. Sorry, I'm communicating what I'm hearing in West Europe and North America. All these preconceived ideas. This is what happened. As time went by, countries started to reduce their family sizes at very low level. Look at China, $1,000. They're coming down here, India. Look at Bangladesh. This is an absolute miracle what Bangladesh is doing. And this is not getting rich. Then they start to get rich. Can you see? China, and if I would be just now to Qatar, I would like to show you also that Qatar also has 2 child families today. In fact, there's no difference between Muslim and Christian countries any longer in the world. And the interesting thing is that Bangladesh is following China. Look here. China was there, they went down. You get down and then economic growth starts. Because economic growth starts in the family, it starts in the community, and then it starts for the country. The demographic gift you get from small family size, because you can start to increase the quality of your schools instead of just building more and more. Uganda had to just build more and more schools every year, instead of raising the quality and have them being trained longer. This is a fantastic thing. It's not as Europe did. Europe and America did it in a completely different way. Look at the United States of America. They came down over there. Wow. They got rich first and then they got down to the family side. Don't ask for advice there, ask for advice here. It makes sense, doesn't it? Now, what we can see is very important to get clear is that this is how the world looks like today. 80% of the world today, 2-child families in the north. It can be Hindus in India, average 2.6, I think in India, 2.5 about. Of course, this family is a little richer than an average. An entrepreneur here with a rickshaw in Bangladesh, the couple have decided to work hard to have a better life for these 2 girls. The 2 Catholics in Mexico are building their home. The Buddhist in Vietnam is already heading on a 2-wheeler for the future. And I add Addis Ababa, which is actually below 2 now. In the front of Africa, I could take it up a quintile in almost any of the successful African countries. They are already there. This is the norm in the world. And this I said, because I lecture a lot in the corporate and financial sector, this is the emerging economies. It's not bankers robbing banknotes to each other. It's young couples working hard for the future of the children. That is what caused the economic growth. Hard-working people who plan for the future and no longer have this dreadful, we must have as many children as possible so that they can carry water, firewood, and at least some of them survive. When that is gone, then we get the economic growth. To me, it makes sense. I also read the scientific studies that support this. So where do people live today? We have 7 billion people, 1 in America, 1 in Europe, 1 in Africa, and 4 in Asia. It's a message in itself, isn't it? More than half of the world is Asia. And Africa is already bigger than Europe. Actually, 100 million more people in Africa than in Europe. And what will happen up to 2050? There will be 1 more in Asia and 1 more in Africa. Then Africa, in 40 years from now, Africa will have as much people as America, from Argentina, US, Canada, all the way over to Vladivostok in Siberia. There will be more people there. And in the second half of this century, most probably another billion in Africa. Now, if I split that in North and South America, East and West Europe, you see what is called Western world today, which has no definition. With some doubt, I decided to include Greece here, but that could be discussed. Yeah, there is no definition. This talk about Western and developing is an ethnic idea because it's a continuous variation in the world. This will be less than 10% of the world. 80% of world population will live in Africa and Asia. Indian Ocean will be the center of world trade. If you have money, buy real estate around the Indian Ocean. It will be extremely changing of the world. This is why the corporate sector and financial institutions pay for my wage. They understand this. They want to bring the capital from here, where they have 1.8% growth and 0.3% growth, to here, where there's more than 5% growth. Capital is going to go this way. And they don't want to have people who sit in Wall Street and in central London and look at the screen. They want people who are trained in economy in Africa and in Asia, who know the companies and go and invest there. This is an enormous change which we are seeing happening now in front of our eyes. So this developing world and Western world, that will go, it will just be the world. And then we will divide the world into countries, and then look at the quite big differences we have within countries. You saw Ethiopia and you saw Ghana. That we will have. Can we trust this? Can we trust demographers? I'm in medicine, and many here in economy. 1958, UN Population Division said that by 2000 there will be 6.2 billion people in the world. And everyone was laughing. I've read what newspapers wrote. This is stupid. It won't work. There will be a famine and war. They said 68. We miscalculated. It will be a little more. Then they said 78. No, perhaps a little less. And this is the result. This is what we know. Respect. 42 years in advance, they hit it almost directly. Medicine can't do this. Did we tell you about HIV in advance? Did we tell you about SARS? Have you asked an economist about the economy 2 years ahead? Demographers are surprising, and this is not known. I found out this is a study published which took all this to just show how correct they were in the past. That's very important when we now emphasize that they are saying this in the future. Now when I come to this, people say, but you say there's 2 children per woman, and yet you say it will grow with 3 billion. So something must be wrong. If it was 2 children per woman, it should stop. Because no one understands population momentum. I'll show you. Today the world looks like this. 2 billion children between 0 and 15, 2 billion almost young adults between 15 and 30, 1 billion here between 30 and 45. And you see the one up there? It's me, 60 plus. It's my group, which is up there. You know, we walk a little like this, you know. And what do we wait for, you know? No. Why are these missing? They are not missing because they died. They are missing because they were never born. There was a child mortality. When I was born in the 1940s, there were much less children born. Because there were less women giving birth to children. Even if they gave birth to five, they were smaller. This is what is not understood, that population pyramid is due to high fertility down here. But now fertility has stopped. And what will happen with the old? You know what happened to old people? I'm not there. This is a young person. We will follow that person. Old people, they get sick and then they die. And the rest, they grow 15 years older and then they get their children. And now the one who was there had moved up here. Then the old, they get sick and then they die. The rest grow older and they get their children. And you see what's about to happen, you know? When that one who was in the young adult group, when they come up here to the top and they get their children, we have 10 billion. I have filled up here without increasing the number of children, without living longer, we get 3 billion more. It's the inevitable increase. That is very important to understand. And there are so many environmental activists who say, we have to stop at 7 billion. If you want to stop at 7 billion, you have to kill people. You need nukes. You have to kill people. I was lecturing in Canada, and the young students say, we have to stop. The environment will be destroyed. If you are burning the coal and oil, and say in Canada, the problem is in Alberta. It's not in the world. And we have to stop population. You can't say that because you don't have any nuclear arms. It's a very strange idea because this is inevitable. And the reason why this is complicated is that these rates, you know, growth rates and so on, they are not well understood. Bangladesh has a birth rate of 21 per thousand, Sweden 12 per thousand. It seems that Bangladesh has twice as many children as Sweden. The death rate in Bangladesh is 7 per thousand, and in Sweden 10. So it's 30%, 50% bigger risk dying for a Swede than for a Bangladeshi person. Because what is death rate? It's number of deaths per 1,000 people, crude death rate. Growth rate is 1.4 in Bangladesh, 0.2 in Sweden, and then fertility rate in Sweden is almost the same as in Bangladesh. Because Sweden have a lot of old people and they rarely give birth. Death rate, life expectancy is longer in Sweden, because Sweden have a lot of old people which are ready to die. That's why we have high death rate. Yeah, you go down to downtown Stockholm and you say, boom! You know, and some fall down and die immediately. Such a lot of old people. Foreign students complain when they go midday in Stockholm, you know, it's like in their home, you know. Net reproductive rate is the number of daughters per surviving daughters per woman. It's the same in Bangladesh. Every woman in Bangladesh is replaced by one adult daughter. Every woman in Sweden replaced by one adult daughter. It's this age structure. About 60 years. Here's the tragedy for Sweden. Look, my group, we are 25%. In Bangladesh, it's rare. Look out the window here. You have to wait for a long time to see someone like me coming there. They're all young people here, well trained, heading for the future, you know. And here's the summary. This is the other summary. Every doll here is 100 million. 100 million. So we have 20 dolls below 15 years of age, most in Asia, then Africa, then America, and Europe is starting to shrink. Europe is a boring place. Look, there are more old people than young people. And America is also quite boring. They're going to add 100 million seniors in Latin America. That's not very exciting. And Africa has Africa already have more below 15, and that's after child mortality have taken somehow. More here than Europe and this together. And Asia has stopped growing. And you see, the last 15 years there were no more children. What happens, you know, the old will die, the rest grow older, and they get their children. One more in Africa, one less in Asia. Because fertility rate in so many parts of Asia is now below 2. Already down to 1.3 in Japan, South Korea, and large parts of China and so on. They all die, the rest grow older, and they get their children. They all die, the rest grow older, and they get it. Quite monotonous with demography. It's the same thing all over. They all die, they grow older, and they get children. It's like family life. This is the inevitable failure. It's not up for discussion, because they are already born. What we can discuss is this. Now, if poverty alleviation is economic growth, poverty alleviation, access to family planning, London plus, you know, if that works, there may be a little less in Africa. A little less. On the other hand, if you get gender equity in Asia, and Asian young educated women decide to have 2 children, you will get more in Asia. So we don't know really. We never know exactly. But more or less it will be like this, and we will land on 10 billion. Some will get older, but that's not the big thing. When we say that the population of China is aging, it's not because the Chinese are living longer. They are already living longer. It's just that they are filling up. This is what aged China, not these two. I, of course, hope to be this guy here. The old European, you know, can make it to 100 so I can see what happens in the world. As long as I can read statistics, keep me alive, I tell my children. You know? And this is, it's not so much to discuss about this. I'll summarize. Today, 2 billion people, 1 to 2 billion people, still have fire as light and for cooking. 1 billion have a lot of electrical things here. They fly on airplanes for their holidays. And 4 billion are in between. This I call poverty line, this I call airline. The only airline they can fly on air for their holiday. How many have washing machine? 1 billion have washing machine. I call that wash line. So you see, and there you have electrical lamp. So you have fire, electric lamp, washing machine, and hundreds of machines and airplanes. This is more or less. Now, is the problem that we get more people? Not at all. The problem is that 1 billion use half the fossil fuel. This is symbol of the fossil fuel: coal, oil, and gas. Then the other 6 divide. But this one with washing machine use 2. With the lamp use 3. They hardly doesn't use anything. So what happens now is that we will get 2 billion more. But they don't burn much coal. They can't afford to emit carbon dioxide. The interesting is the economic growth, not the population. We have to stop discussing population as an environmental issue. It's a welfare issue. They will get richer, hopefully not burn more coal. But they will probably continue to burn as they are doing today. These ones get rich and they will copy. Why shouldn't they? If the other ones haven't done anything, why shouldn't they? This one wants the washing machine, they will double. This one wants the lamp, they will double. So what I see is that population growth will only result in 1.5 unit of carbon use of coal or oil and gas more. Whereas economic growth, that's the thing. It's the improvement of life conditions that we lost. And as long as these people over here hasn't used their money to invest in new technology, you know what they use the money? Agricultural subsidies. The OECD used agricultural subsidies almost $300 billion US, 3 times the development aid they sent to grandpa's farm instead of grandchildren's future. This is shocking to me because I have grandchildren and we've already sold grandpa's farm. We are not concerned about farmers, we are concerned about this. So what will happen? They have to use less. They have to be more energy efficient and they have to change behavior. One way or the other. Then they have to start, green have to start from this end and then go this way. This is what we expect happening in the world. It's not population. The richest countries are using development aid for environmental and climate things just to divert attention from where the problem is. This is my solid conclusion. And they try to convince countries like Bangladesh and India not to produce electricity. I worked in northern Mozambique as an immigrant doctor. I'm very proud and happy to see Indian capital building a coal plant in northern Mozambique, adding electricity to the grids in the south and east. Why couldn't they burn a little more coal here? The problem is the coal burners over here. They still have this. At independence of Bangladesh, each woman in Bangladesh were emitting 7 children. And the Norwegians were emitting 7 tons of carbon dioxide. Today, Bangladeshi women are emitting 2 children, and Norway are emitting still 7 tons of carbon dioxide. Some change, some don't change. And this is really crucial for the future to get this to happen. And the population has really improved. 1800, this is a summary. 2 children, 3, 4, 5, 6 per woman. Number of children who died per woman. 1800 was dreadful in the world. There was slave trade, there was diseases, there were aggression, everything. We had no population growth because 4 of 6 died. This was the only thing we achieved in 100 years. Next 70 years, see, less and less died, and then came the modern family planning. And up here we are. We have almost made it. What was average in the world, 1970, is the worst of countries today, Congo and Afghanistan, and we know what their problems are. We are sad to see the tragedy in these 2 countries. We will be a much, much better world. The world is completely different today. Look here. It's all about money in the end. You recognize the photo? 15th November 2008. It's George Bush here in the middle. He had a problem that fall. He was called the lame duck. That was before the last election. That was collapsing Wall Street. He needed money. He went for the pocket. He had absolutely nothing. He had lowered the taxes in the good years. So he needed to borrow money. Where do you go? You go to your friends. He asked Brown, no, I don't have it. I asked Merkel, no, I have Opel. He asked Sarkozy, no. You have no money, your friends have no money. You need new friends. So Bush made new friends. Look, a socialist, a communist, and a monarch from Saudi Arabia. This is Bush no friend. No. And you are aware of the protocol discussions of who stands where on these photos. Huh? Can you see Sarkozy over here? How come that France is between a Muslim and a Buddhist? It's a new world. You can't just think south and south, because Brazil lends every year $30 billion to the United States of America. 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's the same amount of money as the entire USA budget. Thank you, Dilma Rousseff, putting the cash on the table so that Obama can provide aid. It's a new world, you know. And you can see that it's not only in demography. After demography follows economic powers. These are all the countries who got the family size down. They came down with the help of modern technology, good policies, and when they were down at 2, their economic growth started. And when Lula came home, he said, this is a new time. They were polite. They were very polite to us. And they needed our money. And it was our responsibility. We have to share responsibility for the world now. It's quite interesting. And I lecture in America. No one knows this in America, how much the Brazilians are lending. They used to call them Banana Republic. It's the other way around. The other way around. So this was an attempt to show you how I make sense of population and economic and finance. No need to run family planning for the environment. No need to run it for control of poverty. It's a human right, it's a decent and the right thing to do. It will be good for the family, the community, and the nations. Thank you.